tell us about SBF. Like, who is this character?
When did you first suspect
Yeah, what's your read on the psychology?
that this wasn't legit?
Do you think that it was his altruistic intent that allowed himself to convince himself to do this? Or do you think this was like malicious the whole way? Or what's your sense of the guy?
So again, I'm speculating here. I mean, I've spent time with him. I've met him a bunch of times, and I have to say, I did not see this coming. Like he appeared to me to be a very bright, credible, competent person. Perhaps a bit young, perhaps, a bit reckless at times, but not unethical and not committing fraud. I definitely did not see that. If I look back to see, were there any warning signs that I should have thought twice about it? One of the things I noticed was that in 2021, Coinbase had a good year. We did $7 billion in revenue, $4 billion of positive EBITDA. We became public as a company. At that time, FTX did about $1 billion in revenue. And I knew how much money we had for our venture budget and just like different investments we wanted to make. And I knew their revenue. And I had to scratch my head a bunch of times. And I was like, where is this guy getting all this liquidity? Because he was like buying 9% of Robinhood. He was putting like $1 billion into this. He was donating to all these politicians. And I was like, it did not make sense to me where he was getting all this cash. People just kept telling me, oh, his market maker Alameda is just printing cash. And I was like, okay, I guess it seems like a conflict of interest to own an exchange and a market maker. That's why we haven't done it, but more power to him, I guess. And so I was surprised. I didn't speak up. I can't explain the psychology of it at this point, whether he's a pathological liar or if he's started off good and somehow under the pressure of this whole thing went bad. But the minute you can go watch the interviews, he's lying to people about why he's bailing out Voyager and BlockFi and he knew at that time that most likely he knew at that time that they were not solvent. Alameda was not solvent, and so that's where he crossed a major line in my book.
And we see it time and time again. Elizabeth Holmes, Bernie Madoff. I mean, once the lie gets too big, you can't get out of it anymore. If that's the case, really incredible.
And the most important thing at this point, Brian, is that the United States makes a decision on, do we want to be in crypto? Do we want to have a say in this and create a regulatory framework that entrepreneurs like yourself can deal with? That is the most important thing to happen in the next year. But you're saying the SEC is not motivated. I guess, why are they not motivated? They're just CYA.
No, they're motivated now. This is a political issue now. So
but let's hear Brian's answers here. What do you think?
Let's find out who did SBF give all this money to? Because he was touted as one of the future biggest donors to the Democratic Party.
If
you want signals, I would say there were some pretty big signals here. Number one, he said he's going to donate $1 billion to the Democratic Party. And he kept touting this like effective altruism, whatever, the saving the world stuff. Now, why do you need to do that unless you're reputation laundering and trying to buy political protection? Come on.
Okay.
You don't think that was a little bit of a signal?
Well, I'll tell you an even more explicit signal. He pitched us in that $17 billion round, and I did a Zoom with him. And after the Zoom, I'm like, this doesn't make much sense, but I'll have my team do some work. We did some work, and we sent him a 2-page deck. And we said, here are our recommendations for taking the next step. One was the formation of a board. The second was the creation of dual class stock. The third was some reps and warranties around affiliated transactions and related party transactions. And the person that worked there called us back and literally, I'm not kidding you, said, go fuck yourself. Was quote unquote the response to us. We're like, okay. So that was the easy decision, but
message received.
Message received, but I still thought, okay, I'll just put that in the bucket of these guys are unbelievably arrogant and smug. But Brian, I thought what you thought, which is maybe it's because they've created some money-making machine in the Bahamas, and so they have that level of confidence. But then to see this thing to the extent of which is now, we're only scratching the surface, guys. We're going to find out stuff every day.
The postmortem is going to be crazy. But Brian, to the question I asked before about the SEC and what should happen, you said, I want to pick up on what you said, which is the SEC doesn't seem motivated. Why is the SEC, in your mind, not motivated?
Well, I think you're right. I hope that they use this as a moment to come together and help, local companies in the U.S. being built here to end up in a better place. And I do believe, David, I think said it's right. It is a political issue at this point. There's going to be a major impetus to get the clarity here in the US, and hopefully to help build the companies here in the US that are going to serve the rest of the world and in every major financial hub. So we're committed to building that together with all the regulators around the world. And crypto's here to stay. This is a temporary setback, but I'm here to keep building and make this thing happen.
All right. We really appreciate you taking the time, Brian. David, you want to get the last? Yeah, being so honest.
Listen, I mean, story after story here about, SBF was going to create this $1 billion philanthropy to, save the world, improve humanity's long-term prospects, number 2 donor to the entire Democratic Party, and on and on and on. And quite frankly, what this shows is, you want to know what effective altruism means? It means that you steal other people's money while bragging about saving the world while taking a big chunk for yourself. That's what it means.
There was a research paper in 2011, and this research team looked at drug addicts and drug abusers, 4,000 people, and they found that the biggest addicts had the highest intelligence, that you were twice as likely to become an abuser or an addict if you were any kind of intelligent quintile that they were measuring. And someone explained this to me at the time, that the smarter you are, the more you can convince yourself that when you're doing bad things, you're actually doing good things. Even if you're doing bad things to yourself or bad things to other people that you really may actually care about, you can convince yourself that there's some reason to keep doing it. He seems like a brilliant guy. I think that to some extent, he may actually, I don't know the guy, but he may actually believe that the ends did justify the means, and he thought that he was doing good for the world, and this was something that had to be done in some way, and it just got a little bit away from me, but it's still. I think